In our third video on this last installment of who is properly prepared for the Lord's Supper, Luther rightly explains that as he understands the scriptures and shares that with us. I want you to think about this. Since the Lord's Supper offers the very body and blood of Christ to benefit us with forgiveness, explain why someone should be instructed and should understand what they're receiving before they receive it. Not only that, but again, what should their attitude be in receiving the supper? Let me read to you from 1 Corinthians 11, 29 through 30. As you discuss this as a family, anyone who eats and drinks without recognizing the body of the Lord eats and drinks judgment on himself. See, there's a warning. It's serious stuff. That is why many among you are weak and sick, and a number of you have fallen asleep or have died. So, thinking of that question there, what do you think? Why someone should be instructed and understand what they're receiving? Not only that, but again, what should their attitude be in receiving the Lord's Supper? I'm going to go ahead and, if you've had a chance to talk, great. If not, go ahead and pause because I'm going to give you some thoughts and some answers here. If you are to prepare for the Lord's Supper, you should do that every time. Paul says to everybody should examine themselves, examine their hearts. What should we be looking for? A few things. One, do I recognize that I'm a sinner? And one of the things that Luther gives us is kind of an examination of the Ten Commandments. If you wonder if you're a sinner, he would say, well, pinch yourself. Are you still in the world? Yes, then you're a sinner. But you can go through the Ten Commandments and ask, have I loved God? Have I honored his name? Did I remember to rest in him? Or do I keep trying to earn my salvation and earn things in this life and not depend on him? Have I honored those in authority over me, my mother and father, or those in government, or those in the church? Have I devalued life? Have I hurt someone? Have I called someone a name, hated someone, murdered someone? Have I committed adultery? Have I been lustful with my thinking? Have I envied someone for their property or coveted, if you will, and taken it and stolen it from them? Tried to cheat them out of it in some way? Had thoughts about that? Have I spoken poorly about others? Have I not defended someone's reputation? Have I desired anything that is not mine in a sinful way and schemed to try to get it, just even in my thinking? If we can say yes to any of that, and who can't, then we recognize we're sinful. That is key before you come to the Lord's table. When we say you should be worthy to come to the Lord's table, we're not saying that you need to be sin-free. If you think you're sin-free, you're full of pride. You're a Pharisee, and you should not come forward, because that meal is given for those who admit that they're sin-sick. They need rescue and a Savior. So that's number one. Number two, we need to recognize that Christ's body and blood is truly there, offering the forgiveness of sins. So that's number two, that as we come forward, we're coming forward as sinners who are in desperate need of what is offered. It's truly there. We recognize the body and blood of Christ giving us forgiveness. Not recognizing the body and blood of Christ is to sin against the body and blood of Christ. And then finally, we leave joyful. We leave knowing we've been cleansed, we're forgiven, we're loved by God, and strengthened to begin again, to live a new and holy life, asking God to go with us so that we can continue to resist temptation and grow in our strength to do that. So those are three things that we really want to work through every time we come to the Lord's table. Of course, this assumes that we know as we come forward, we're united with everyone who's at the table with us in Jesus' teaching, in every doctrine, as far as we can know them and have been instructed. All right, so with that, go ahead and focus on that thought. Did you come up with those answers? Not only that, but again, what would you say should be an attitude for coming to the Lord's Supper? What should people be instructed in to receive the Lord's Supper and understand? I mean, it's an attitude of humility and faith. It's a recognition of Christ's body and blood for your forgiveness, which we need because we're sinful. And we see strength to live a new holy life when we leave.